All right, welcome everybody. It's your boy Big Mo, and you in the blender with me, and then Reid. Let's Miss Reid, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Yourself?
I'm doing great. So, as a part of Black History Month, the Community That Cares Task Force is sponsoring a series on the rich African American history in Albion and what it was like growing up in the time of the speakers. And so, I would like to get your story on that. Where would you like to start? Well, could you start by introducing yourself?
Okay, my name is Lenn Reid. I'm a city council person. I'm on the land bank. I'm on the planning commission. I've lived in Albion since I was 2 years old.
Okay, I won't ask you how many years that is, but I can imagine.
I don't mind telling you.
It's been a while. So you said you came to Albion, your family moved to Albion when you were 2 years old. Where did you guys move from?
We moved from Alabama. My dad came up to work in the Albion Malibu Iron Company, and so we moved up here. He came up, and then he sent back for the family.
Oh, okay. So it was a big migration in Albion back in the early
Yep.
50s, factories. You guys had a lot of work up here. And a lot of African Americans were able to purchase homes and have a medium class life around Albion. So I would like to hear what it was like growing up for you and your family in Albion.
Well, we had a home that was out at the end of Dalrymple Street, down closer to the Kalamazoo River.
Okay.
And
South end of town.
South end of town.
Okay.
Yes. And down there was mostly blacks, Latinos, and a few white families.
Okay, down by the river. So you went to Albion Public Schools, I'm assuming.
Yep, I did.
Tell me a little bit about going to school in Albion, which I would assume was like the 50s and 60s.
Yep.
Okay.
And it was because we came here in 1948.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I went to school at Dalrymple School.
Okay.
And
was that a segregated school back then, or all black? All?
nope, it was all. It was a mix.
Okay,
it was black and white because Dalrymple School, you know, is close to Erie Street, and at that time, most of Erie Street was.
Were they affluent white or just white families?
Just white families.
Okay.
Now, on back where we lived, on going down Dalrymple Street, where you're going south on Dalrymple Street, there was Irwin Avenue.
Right.
Now, that's where a lot of the affluent white people lived. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys lived past that or right before that section?
We lived past there.
Okay, so going home from school, you would have to walk past that affluent section.
Have to walk past
Okay.
there, and as we got on up around Lincoln Street and Lincoln Street, yeah, that's usually where your black, Latino, and poor white families.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was school like?
School was good.
Okay.
I enjoyed school. Starting in the kindergarten, I had a very nice teacher, first grade.
Okay.
But then when I got to third grade, that's where I ran into some problems.
Okay.
I had a teacher that was not very nice to her black students.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, if you were asked a question or something you couldn't answer, she'd say, "Put out your knuckles."
Oh.
And when you put your hand out, she would hit your hand with a wooden stick.
Okay, as a
Went
form
home
of punishment,
one day,
huh?
Yeah. Went home one day and the skin on my knuckles was cut up.
Okay, from the
And,
whooping.
from being hit
With
with
that
a wooden stick.
Okay.
And my mom was not very pleased with that. And even though my mom was a Christian, she handled business.
Okay.
And so she came to the school. She let them know, "I discipline my children. You will not do that again."
Okay.
You know? And so
you got past that.
I got past that. I went on. I had some very nice teachers. My sixth grade teacher, she was a very nice teacher. When I left Dalrymple School, went to the middle school, which is up on Michigan Avenue, Washington Gardner, and there I had some very nice teachers. And I had one teacher that, a social studies teacher, that we had to write reports, and I wrote a report on Africa. Africa always fascinated me.
Okay.
But I used to watch the television. You would see who was the guy that was the African, that was the white man in Africa.
Jacques Cousteau or
No.
Tarzan?
No, I'm trying to think.
Was it a series, a show?
No, it was not a serious show. It was a fun show.
Okay.
And anyway, he always swung on things from place to place.
Okay.
But I used to be fascinated with Africa. I didn't like the things that I saw the pictures when the whites would be in the villages. But I did like the African stuff, so I would watch that. And I wrote a report on Africa. And I did so well on the report, my teacher, Mr. Schroeder, asked me if he could use my report to do his dissertation for a college class. And so I told him sure. So I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, that is neat to have a professor.
Tarzan, that's what I'm trying to think of.
Okay, yeah, I said Tarzan. Johnny Weissmuller used to play Tarzan back there in them days. I remember some of those movies. My mother loved them also. Okay, so you had an interesting childhood in the Albion public school system.
Yep,
You know,
and
you
then
can go ahead.
I went on to after I got out of school, and I started my family and everything. But then I got a job as a paraprofessional over at Crowell School, and I worked there. And from things I could see going on then, I decided that I wanted to go to school to be an educator. And so I started taking classes at Kellogg Community College. Then I went on to Michigan State University, and that's where I got my BA in education.
Okay, so you became a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a white teacher at Crowell named Ona Baker, and she had told me, she said, I've watched you and the things you've done, and she said, so when you get out of school, I'm going to retire and you can have my job. Well, I was teaching, I was going through the elementary education program at Michigan State, and so you had to do a year of teaching with a mentor.
Okay.
And you only got paid a stipend, and they got paid the rest. And so when I was doing that program, I guess I did so well until they asked me in April if I would take a job with the school system after I graduated in June.
Sweet.
So I said, yes, I will, because at that time I needed a job.
Right.
And so I took that job, and I taught for that year as a regular teacher. And Mrs. Baker, she told me, she said, I'm going to retire next year. Well, at that time, Garth Arrington was the assistant superintendent in Val Creek, and so I saw him one day, and I said, I understand you're going to Albion to be superintendent. He said, yep. I said, I'd like to get a job there. I live there. He said, come and sign a contract. He didn't say come and fill out an application
or apply. He said, come sign the contract.
And so I came, I signed my contract. Mrs. Baker retired. I got the job.
And you took her position just like it was in the plan, huh? Well, that's great.
That was God.
That was God, I can imagine. So, speaking of God, you come from a religious family.
Yes, I did. Well, my mom was religious.
Okay, devout.
My dad was dad, but my mom was religious, and she always taught us, you know, that there was a good plan for our life, that God had a plan for our life, and if we did the things that we should do, like we should do them, that we would always be blessed. And she was right.
Okay, that's absolutely correct, you know. Even though sometimes all of us don't do what we're supposed to, we find our way eventually.
Yep.
So tell me about your working in the high schools, in the school system. How long did you teach?
I taught for 38 years.
Wow.
And I started out in second grade, and then I took the junior primary. I was asked to take junior primary. Junior primary was a classroom where the children came out of kindergarten, not ready for first, but too high for kindergarten, or they were in first, not doing very well, needed to move back, but not to kindergarten.
Right.
And so I was at intermediate grade in between kindergarten and first.
Okay, so you got them ready.
Most of my years were in there. I taught second grade, I taught third grade. One time I got laid off, and they even gave me seventh grade science. And so anyway, but most of the time I taught junior primary, and I really enjoyed that. The kids, even though it was a lot of hard work, because when you got children who are not focused a lot, and you've got to work on not only teaching them, but keeping their attitude about class, about school, like it should be.
Right.
But I was very, very blessed, because I always had parents to work with me. I would tell the parents when their kids came to my class, this is not your child anymore. This is our child.
Right.
And I treated those children like I would treat my own. But when I had to talk with them about something, we sit down and we talked about it. I showed them the respect that I would show my child.
Right.
And it always worked out good. My parents were fantastic.
Well, that's great.
I even got a couple of them that put me in the Who's Who's of America's Great Teacher books.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's an honor right there. That
Yeah.
shows a lot of respect for your craft and your dedication to the kids and their education. I'm glad that they did that for you. So we're going to speak about your job in city government. I want to find out exactly how you ended up joining the council.
Now that's a story.
I got a minute.
Okay, I bought a home on Chestnut Street back in the 70s.
Okay.
And just one day there was an officer coming up the street in a hurry. I don't know where he was going, but he was flying, and he did not have his lights on.
Okay.
And so no one knew that he was really coming. And another car was pulling out, which hit his car, knocked it over in my yard. May I say my newly sodded yard.
Okay. Just did some work to your yard.
Yeah. So them dragging the car around and out of my yard tore my yard all up. And I was told, we don't have any money to redo your yard.
Okay.
I said, okay. So I had my yard redone. Well,
At your own expense?
At my own expense,
okay.
Yes. And so then later on, when they were doing a place out in the street, out in
sewer.
The water sewer. Yeah. And so they backed up, they had this big machinery that was running all over the sidewalk, broke it all up. They dug out my driveway, which I had just had done, but they needed to take the bottom end out, I guess for putting pipe. And anyway, they messed all of that up, and then I was told, we don't have the money.
So they destroyed your yard yet again and wouldn't fix it.
And I said, no, this ain't gonna work this time.
Okay.
I said, because if it was other places in Albion you did this, you would fix it.
Right.
And so I said, I'm gonna run for council, and when I get to council, you're gonna fix it. And so the gentleman at that time, he smiled at me and got in his truck. But I did win, and they did come out, and they measured it off, and I said, well, if you take a look at this sidewalk, it's messed up from way up there all the way down. So they did the whole sidewalk all the way down Chestnut Street, which made me very happy because there were some people who needed that sidewalk, older people who had had hip surgery that needed to walk, and they couldn't really walk because it was up, down, up, down.
Right.
So that helped them out too.
Well, that speaks volumes because I've been in Albion 27 years. Actually used to live kitty corner from you a long time ago. I don't know if you remember that. A lot of people do a lot of talking, and just listening to your conversation, you're a person of action. And just watching and listening to that part of your story, I would hope that the viewers would understand that nothing gets done without action.
Yeah.
And so taking that initiative, you got what you needed done.
Yeah.
And speaking of passion, I've worked with you out the park, and I want to talk about your passion for Holland Park and why you got so involved with that as a council member and a citizen.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, that wasn't really my idea. That was Mr. Bonner's idea.
Okay.
Mr. Bonner used to come by up at the school, and he sat one day and he was telling me about Holland Park and about Mr. Holland. Of course, I knew Mr. Holland. In fact, they lived where we used to pass by a lot of times going to church because they lived on Center Street, and we used to be walking down Albion Street right past where they lived.
Okay.
And then we also knew their family, their children and everything. And Bob Holland, he was a very well known. Ben and Jerry, and when I was with the NACP, they came out and brought ice cream to the park where we had a Juneteenth celebration.
Okay.
And thing. At Victory Park, and so, but I knew them. So he was telling me about it, and he said, we need to get that park fixed up. And I said, Mr. Bonner, I can't do that. I said, because I'm teaching. You don't do anything when you're teaching, but teach because that's a 24-hour-a-day job.
You got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, and so, because when I went home, I'd spend most of my evening preparing, stuff for the kids to take home to work on, or work on over the weekend, or do the next day, and so you were always busy.
Right.
And so he told me, you think about it. So we went on, and Mr. Bonner come by again, and I said, I'm still thinking. Well, then he heard evidently that I was retired. My mom was ill, and I wanted to make sure that she was taken care of, and I had enough years, and I had,
put in your
old
work.
enough to retire. And so he came by and he said, okay, I hear you retiring. You ready to start that park? I said, oh, Mr. Bonner. And so I said, yes.
Right.
Well, then I decided, I said, let me go out here and look at this park. And so I went out and I walked the park and I looked at it. Now, when they took down the school, I was a very young child
Okay.
when that happened. But they only put out a couple of playthings. There was a swing out there, there was a climber, and a sandbox dug down in the ground. And that's just about all that there was out there. And so, and down at the bottom, a basketball court. So I walked and I looked and I walked and I looked. And then one morning about 6 o'clock, I just woke up. And so I went out to the park and I walked the length of the park, and then I went and walked all the way around the park, and I prayed as I walked. And as I was walking all the way around that park, I began to see things. I saw where the children's area is and the things that are there. I keep walking, and I just started seeing things. Thoughts started coming to my mind.
Developing in your mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
about things. This is where you should put this. This is where you should put that. And it just all started just popping up in place.
Okay.
And so I told him, okay, I'm ready to do that part.
Right.
So I started working on that part. Well, that's when we got Mrs. Mitchell as the Albion City manager. And she hadn't even signed her contract. And I said to her, Miss Mitchell, I need a grant paper filled out. Could you do that for me? And she said, oh, sure. So I told her about the park and what I had wanted to do there. And we got a committee together, and she signed, filled out the grant papers to firekeepers. I think it was for $35,000. And we got every penny of it.
Wow.
And so we put in the children's section with the help of a church from Illinois that came and helped us through the Albion College.
Okay.
And then after then, I started on the next piece, the next piece, the next piece. So we got the children's section, we've got the children's walking garden, of which I've got some more things to put in it before I'm really finished there. Then we got the senior section put in with workout machines, so we got a little bit more to do there. We've got the teen sections. The senior section was done by Senior Millage, and then the Visitors Bureau, they gave us the $25,000 to do the teen section. Mr. Williams, Larry Williams, who was our rec director, he wrote a grant to get the bathrooms redone and the handicap bathrooms done, to get the basketball courts recovered and some baskets.
So y'all did a lot of work to that
Yes,
park. Yeah,
lot
it is
of
looking
work.
good. Yeah, I see the paint.
Because the West Ward School was there. It's about the people who taught in the school, the children who went to the school, the area, the people who lived in that area. And Bobby Walls, Wes and Les Dick did very well on putting that together. When you go there, all of the fun stuff is there to enjoy. But then if you really want to know the history of the area, the history of what was going on in Albion, you can go to History Hill. There's a website on the kiosks that are standing there that gives you the history of that area, the people, and what was going on in Albion at that time.
That concludes part 1 of Albion Archives with Lenn Reid. Please stay tuned to the Blender for part 2. Please go to my page and like the Blender, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Lunar Night Studios. This video was sponsored by the Community That Cares Task Force. Thank you.